So think about this for a second. When life throws you one of those unexpected turns, maybe a loss, a big change, something totally out of your hands, how do we usually react? I mean, often it's that feeling of being blindsided, right? Asking, why me? Why now?
Mhm.
But what if there's another way to see it? What if those moments aren't just random hits, but maybe an invitation to something else? A framework even for finding meaning? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. We're looking at a really fascinating text, which digs into a pretty unique spiritual doctrine. Our goal here is to unpack its core idea, something that could genuinely reframe how you look at change, loss, maybe even find a deeper kind of fulfillment through it all.
Yeah, and right at the very center of this whole thing, I mean, the idea that defines this particular ascetic-mystic path, it's a powerful statement. Renunciation is a law. And it's presented not just as, a nice thought, but as the absolute foundational principle of this Cafh doctrine, which is a spiritual school focused on blending practical life with deep inner work.
Okay, so a law, not just a suggestion. That's significant. And the source material, it says this law is both really obvious, like you see it everywhere, but also kind of mysterious.
Exactly. It's framed as a natural law of life itself, the thing that gives some kind of coherence to all the constant change we experience. If everything's always shifting, then this law, according to the text, is sort of the underlying constant that helps make sense of the flux. It's even described as an impulse, pushing us towards self-knowledge, towards understanding that divine mystery within ourselves.
Interesting. So this core idea, this law, it sets the stage for how we actually deal with life's flow.
Precisely. And from there, the text lays out two really distinct ways this law plays out in our lives. The contrast is pretty stark.
Okay, let's start with the first way. How does this law of renunciation show up for people who maybe aren't even thinking about it in these terms? The text calls it.
Consequent renunciation. This describes the experience of people who are, well, essentially unaware that renunciation is a law. For them, life's events, especially the unexpected or unwanted ones, feel like consequences, things that happen to them and they just react. Like a job loss out of the blue, a relationship ending or changing, getting sick, or realizing you can't hold on to something you're attached to. These are all just parts of life unfolding.
Yeah, and the emotional reaction sounds rough. Surprise, stupor, deep suffering, even self-pity. That why me feeling you mentioned earlier. But wait, if the law is constant change, why does ignorance of it lead to so much suffering? Why not just acceptance?
That's the crucial point. The suffering, according to this text, doesn't come directly from the event itself, but from being unaware of the underlying principle. Without that conscious awareness that renunciation, this letting go, is just part of how life works, there's no sense of agency. You feel like a victim of circumstance. You're just reacting, not consciously engaging or learning. And the text really highlights the inability to find meaning in loss, especially something like death, as the core problem here. You're left asking those why questions without a framework for an answer.
Okay, that makes sense. But then there's the other side of the coin, the alternative way, renunciation as a path. This sounds like where things start to shift.
Oh, absolutely. This is the transformative approach. Unlike just reacting, is presented as a conscious personal choice, a decision. It's about choosing to align yourself with life, to flow with what comes, instead of constantly pushing against it based on your own desires. The text emphasizes it's an individual good, something you have to conquer for yourself. Nobody can just give it to you. And it's not static. It changes, like looking through a kaleidoscope, depending on the moment, the place, the person.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It sounds less like giving up in a passive sense and more like choosing to engage differently. Is that right? Like becoming aware of life's movement and then voluntarily choosing to go with it. Not resisting based on what I want, but seeing every moment as a chance to learn something.
Yes, you've got it exactly. That's the shift. It's moving from passive suffering to active participation. When you consciously live this, you start transforming experiences. Every moment, its potential becomes raw material for learning, for expanding your awareness. It's about learning that skill of taking and leaving, engaging with what life offers, but not getting stuck, not clinging or pushing away, just moving through.
Wow, that sounds like it could foster a really wise perspective, a kind of balance, helping you handle both the good stuff and the tough stuff without getting totally thrown off.
That's precisely the idea. It cultivates this wise, equanimous view. You learn to navigate the happy moments and the bitter ones without getting tangled up in them. You're not trapped by the past. You're not constantly grasping for a specific future outcome. You just move through, learning as you go.
And a really big piece of this seems to be about letting go of control. I think that's huge for a lot of us. The text makes it clear, right, that this path helps release that deep-seated resistance to what is, that need to know everything, control everything, have all the answers.
hmm It helps you let go of those ghosts of the future, as the text calls them all, those worries about things you can't control anyway.
So instead of fearing the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You embrace the power of right now, the present moment. The text hammers this home. The present is the only place you can actually act. It's where the secret of life is, where the transformation happens.
It reminds me of that idea of focusing on the journey, not just the destination. The source mentions being walking, becoming.
Yes, that's a lovely phrase for it. It's about taking continuous, purposeful steps. Steps that leave a mark, not because you arrive somewhere specific, but because of the process itself, the constant unfolding.
And this path seems to go even deeper into embracing the unknown.
It does. There's this element of immersing yourself in the unknown, which the text actually identifies with God, or the divine. It's described as a kind of purification process, letting go of fixed beliefs, rigid knowledge, expectations, learning to navigate that uncertainty, maybe with fear, maybe without it, but surrendering to the flow of consciousness itself. It's a deep act of trust.
Okay, so as we're flowing with this understanding, the text brings in these deeper dimensions, the asceticism of renunciation and how it connects to the mysticism of the heart. And there's that really striking phrase that sums it up: they gain nothing, have nothing, be nothing.
Yeah, in our world, which is so focused on gaining, having, being something specific, that phrase really stops you in your tracks, doesn't it? And the interpretation offered is profound and kind of counterintuitive. It suggests that when we think we're gaining, we actually become gained by whatever we achieved. We get trapped by it. When we think we have things, we end up being possessed by them. Our identity gets wrapped up in our stuff. And when we try really hard to be more, to puff up our ego, we actually lose connection with our true self. We get lost in the ego's noise.
Wow, that challenges. Well, pretty much everything society tells us is important. It forces a pause. So what does this simplification, this not gaining, not having, not being, actually look like? How does it play out?
Well, connecting it back, it's fundamentally about seeing the difference between that illusory ego self and the authentic being underneath. The process described is one of working on ourselves, yes, but maybe more accurately simplifying ourselves, getting down to what's real and concrete. And a focused will is key here. Renunciation, especially when tied to a sense of purpose beyond just yourself, helps you concentrate that willpower. It really makes you question where real fulfillment comes from. Is it in getting more or in letting go?
And the ultimate outcome, the promise of living this way, is described as plenitude, fullness, plenitude. The text talks about this profound inner fullness that comes over you when you become aware of hosting the Divine Mother, that sort of nurturing, unifying, divine aspect right there in your own heart.
Exactly. And this plenitude isn't just like feeling happy for a bit. It's described as something much bigger, a comprehensive, integral realization. It includes this sense of boundless freedom, deep peace, genuine wisdom, and ultimately this feeling of union with the divine. It's a fundamental shift in your whole way of being.
Okay, so stepping back, this journey into renunciation as a law has definitely given us a lot to think about, a whole new lens, really. We started with that basic idea. Renunciation isn't just something that happens, it's a fundamental law of life, giving order to all the change. Then we saw the two paths. The reactive, often painful, where life just seems to happen to us.
Right, versus the empowering, conscious path, choosing to flow, choosing to learn, choosing active participation in every moment.
Yeah, and we explored what that path involves: learning to take and leave, finding that balanced view, releasing the need for control, really embracing the present.
And finally, we touched on that deep, almost mystical aspect encapsulated in that challenging phrase. Discovering that true fullness might come from simplifying, from letting go, connected to something deeper than the ego.
It really feels like more than just an abstract idea. It feels like a practical framework, something you could actually use to navigate life's ups and downs, find more meaning, maybe find a more stable kind of inner peace. So as you, our listener, reflect on all this, here's something to maybe ponder. If that deep fullness, that plenitude, isn't really about gaining more or having more or even being more in the way we usually think, what's one belief, maybe one attachment that you could consciously choose to start letting go of, even just a little bit, starting today? What could you release least, to make a bit more space for understanding your own true self and the way life actually flows.